Hey guys, welcome back to All Wheel Drive. I hope you guys have been doing all right. I thought I'd give you an update on some other changes in my fleet. You probably have seen the video where I shared that we acquired a new SUV for my wife. As I mentioned, she has been very, very understanding of all my toy acquisitions and my many endeavors into just excess of things that nobody really needs, but I really appreciated her understanding there. So we got her a new vehicle. And I actually got rid of the 997.1 Carrera 4 that I reviewed that I said I really did love. And I did love that car, but at some point you have to make changes in life that lead you to make decisions and alter the state of things so that it accommodates something new, a different chapter, a new beginning, whatever the case may be. So that change took place, and we're now in the throes of yet another change. The latest update in terms of the motorcycle fleet, as you see, I've still got quite a few choices here. The latest change is that the Super Duke 1290R, which I recently reviewed, is now gone. The whole thing behind that bike, and you're probably going, well, I thought that was an awesome bike, why did you get rid of it? Well, my intention with that bike was never long term. I wanted that bike because the Super Duke 1290 is a pinnacle sort of mark in the sand or in the timeline of motorcycle development. It's the best naked bike out on the road. It's basically a hyper naked is the term thrown on it, but I'd say it's more of a hyper moto. Because if you think about the KTM, it's more of a dirt bike on steroids than it is a street bike. So as I mentioned, I bought that bike because I wanted the experience. I wanted to see what it was all about. I previously had the single R BMW, which I thought was one of the best naked bikes on the market. And if you followed any naked bike sort of evolution, you know that the Super Duke, the single R, the Tuono, those are like some of the biggest names in naked bike production. And so I had to know, okay, if the Duke was beating out the Tuono, which was basically the perennial champion of the naked bike segment, I needed to know what that was like. And so I bought that bike to have the experience. I bought it at such a great deal that it wasn't really a risk in terms of, losing money. So I got rid of that bike. It's been about a week now since it's been gone. Went to an owner who had been really seeking that bike. It was a bike he was really looking forward to having. So I felt pretty good about, passing it on. And the other part of it is I paid a price for it that when I sold it, essentially I only lost about $100. So if you think about it in terms of monetizing it across a time frame, I borrowed the bike for $100. I mean, I had to pay registration recently, and that was another $300. But to say, for $400, $500, 6 or more months of sort of borrowing that bike, that was a pretty good deal. I mean, I can't complain about that. So I had a good time with it. The other part of it was that bike is so intense that it lulled me into being too confident. What I mean by that is I was always sort of teetering on the next level of limitation. That bike makes you want to drive it faster because it has so much technology, it has so many safety features, it has so many dynamic aspects to it that you just find yourself going and going and going, and by the time you realize you're going way farther than you should over your limit, it could be too late. And driving that on the street, that's just not really a good recipe for any kind of satisfactory outcome if you keep pushing. So the fact that it kept sort of drawing me in to want to go a little bit faster, you couldn't help it. I mean, you get on that bike and you twist that throttle, you hear that grunt of that engine, and you just kind of lose yourself. And so I didn't want to keep losing myself because that's just not something I needed to be doing. So that bike has moved on, and these are left. You've seen the review on this one. I'll do another update on this. This is a bike that I just feel like no matter what happens, as this decreases, this one will stay. This is like a unicorn for me. This is the bike that I've always felt like I wanted to have, but it was just a matter of finding the right one, and then once I did, not letting it go, because these bikes come on the market and then they disappear, and then it'll be another 10 years or so before a bike like this shows up again. You can still get them, but what I'm saying is that it's hard to find the one you want in the condition you want that doesn't need a whole lot of love and restoration. So this bike, if it does nothing more than sit as a trophy piece, I'll probably hold on to. This one, I have to say, in terms of handling, performance, this is the best balance of any of those things that I've ever experienced. I've had a lot of different bikes, as you know. I've always wanted a GSXR 750, and this one has basically exceeded every expectation I had for this particular motorcycle. It does everything well. And I think that if I'm going to have a performance bike, I'm not using this as my everyday performance bike because it's just old and it's dated in that it doesn't have the ability to give you the thrill ride at the same limits as, say, this. Now, they're only about 6 years apart in age, but that difference is significant in that this bike is so highly developed, not only from the aspect that it was the champion in Moto America or Superbike and in World Superbike, but it was just advanced so that it would be the best balance between everything you want and need. Leader bike, power and performance, super sport balance. You combine those two and you've got a really great recipe for doing whatever you want to do on a track, canyon roads. It's just a well-balanced, well-placed bike. And it's so planted in terms of handling that on any given day I'll get on this bike and I'll feel like I can do everything I want to do and I don't need another bike. That's not to say I won't get another bike. Let's not misconstrue those that disclosure. This bike, I mentioned a while back, I did a preview on this bike, and I said I'd do a review. I have not really ridden this bike much at all. And I bought this bike before I got this bike because I knew that this bike wasn't going to be my everyday fun bike, but I also didn't have my GS 1200 BMW anymore, which I mentioned I had an accident, so that bike was gone. But I wanted something that was comfortable, something that was upright, that I could ride on an everyday basis and go long distance. This bike ticked all those boxes. Now, it wouldn't give me the same level of adventure as the BMW did because obviously that bike could go off-road, and there's just something appealing about having that versatility that I missed, and I thought I'd supplement it by having a bike that I could go longer distance so I could at least explore the roads that I might want to take this on later. So this bike came into the picture because I needed a balance between this and a GS, which had a more comfortable riding position. This bike has upright handlebars, so it does give you a better riding position. You sit more upright on it. I'll kind of give you an image of what that looks like. As you sit on it, I'm very upright, and it's comfortable. You can go for long distances on this bike and not feel the fatigue that you would on this bike. Now, this bike has sporting everything on it. The rear sets, the pegs, everything has been modified for track from the previous owner. So riding this bike is even more committed than that bike. I dare say the GSXR is a very comfortable all-day bike. This bike, however, you can have a good time on it. It's fairly comfortable, but you are really into it. You notice my whole position has changed. I'm slightly forward now. I'll put my foot up on the peg, and it's really high. It's very high. But it puts you in a position where you can really throw this thing around, and you do have to throw it around. This bike is very heavy compared to the likes of that bike. It's probably on par with that thing just a bit, but the dynamics and the geometry of it make it a little bit more versatile in the handling category. So it's good that way. The GSXR, I'd say it's a balance between everything. Still forward, but not nearly as committed. Rear sets, my legs aren't nearly as high up. That bike had me here. These are just slightly down forward. It's a very comfortable position, and I can take this bike for pretty much a long ride anywhere, go through the corners, and then go home and not feel worn out at the end of the ride. So I love it for that reason. But I will say that this bike, as much as it does tick a lot of the boxes that I was looking to check off with this acquisition, having this bike kind of nullifies the existence of this bike. And what I mean is that this is comfortable enough that I can handle riding it a long distance, and I wouldn't use this necessarily to go survey where I could ride as much as I would this. But I also wouldn't use this to have as much fun through the canyons as I would this. So it's almost like, they're equally opposing, mutually exclusive in some ways, but very similar in some ways. The handling on this bike is okay, and I think for what it is, it's not quite a tourer, a sport tourer, but it's also not a sport bike. Or super bike. It's somewhere in that middle of a gray area where you kind of like, it does everything that this bike can do with a lot more commitment from you, the rider, to make it do so. This bike doesn't require nearly as much input to make those things happen. It doesn't mean that this isn't fun, but I think when you have an alternative like this, which I do, or this, it makes it a little bit less necessary. So I will try to get a review on this bike before it goes. It is up for sale. It's a fantastic bike, don't get me wrong. I think having something sporty like this, if you're coming off of a 600 Super Sport, if you're coming off of a naked bike that's a fairly sporty situation, say like the 696 or the 796 Ducatis, it's not bad. I mean, a Monster would be a good transition from that to this if you want to get out of the Italian and go to a leader bike you can afford. Again, the Super Sports, this is a good transitional bike. Puts out about 140 plus horsepower. Say something like maybe high 60s, low 70s in the torque range. I think I might have misquoted in my previous video saying it was 80. It's not. But I'll put it like this. You whack the throttle on this thing in first, second, or third, and you're going to be basically on a unicycle. So you have to mind its power. It is a leader bike, and it is a Ninja. It's not a ZX. But I think, with that said, it does give you pretty much everything you're looking for if you want a sporty bike that you can do everything with. And I promise you, you're going to outride all the other friends you have on the more sportier bikes because they're going to run out of gas before you will. Anyway, that's the update. That's where things are. So I'm cleaning house a bit because this is a lot to keep up with. This is a lot of maintenance. This is a lot of attention, and I don't have that kind of time like I used to. So it probably will make the way for something else down the road. Right now, I'm not in a hurry to get anything new. I'll probably start opening the door to do videos of other people's cars. So if you're a subscriber and you're thinking, you know what, I'd like to get my car on camera, send me a note. We'll talk. I would love to look at anybody else's vehicle because I like the enthusiasm behind what someone decides is the right vehicle for them. Everybody has different tastes. We all have overlapping tastes in some way or another. And if I can share with you my experience of a vehicle that you may never have or don't want, that's fine. And then I'd love to share your experience in the vehicle that you have that I may never have. So I think that's where this commonality comes into play. All-wheel drive. I want to see them all. So that's the update, guys. I've got some other stuff coming here in the next few weeks, so stay tuned and keep chiming in. I appreciate your feedback. Love that you're subscribing. I'm seeing the numbers grow. Like I said, I don't do this for the money. I do this for fun, but I've got to pay for some of this stuff. So the better subscriptions I get, the more numbers I get. If any money comes in from this, it'll go into making more content. It'll go into getting other cars that I may not necessarily have to buy, but I can at least get them for the day or so and put content together for you guys to see. So thanks again, guys. Till the next time, all-wheel drive. Peace out.